Peace be upon you all. Good evening, everybody. In this evening, I want to talk about rhetorical strategies. Look, when we address people, whether orally or through a piece of writing, we make arguments, and we make arguments to achieve a certain purpose. For example, we want to make people believe what we say or what we write, or we want to incite people into a certain course of action, or we want to gain their admiration or their support. So anyway, when we make these arguments, we often use certain rhetorical strategies, certain devices, certain strategies, whether we are aware of it or we are not. Now, what are rhetorical strategies? Strategies is self-explanatory, strategy and a device or a device. But rhetorical comes from the Greek, from the word rhetoric. Rhetoric, R-H-E-T-O-R-I-C, rhetoric. And rhetoric is the effective use of language. How the idea then is how to make our arguments, how to reinforce our arguments and make them as effective as possible in order to influence the audience, the listeners or the readers, in order to make our point, in order to persuade the audience and, as I said, achieve the purpose for which we are writing or speaking in the first place. There are many rhetorical strategies out there, like comparison, antithesis, etc. So there are many rhetorical strategies out there, but we will limit myself in this short video into three rhetorical strategies that are sometimes called modes of persuasion. Modes of persuasion. Persuasion comes from the verb persuade. The Greek philosopher Aristotle, more than 2,000 years ago, spoke about these three modes of persuasion, but they are still valid today as they were in the past. So what are these? These are the ethos, the logos, and the pathos. If you don't immediately recognize these words, it is because they are in the Greek language. So don't worry, they will be clear once they are translated into plain English. So let's go over them one by one. The ethos, E-T-H-O-S, simply means etymologically, that is, in their linguistic meaning, they mean disposition or character. The ethos is disposition or character. And in the context of the rhetorical strategies, ethos means appeal to credibility or authority and the honesty. So the idea is that the author or the speaker, now we are speaking about the author here, the writer, is trying to establish his credibility, to build the trust that will make the reader trust him and believe what he's writing or what he's saying. So he's keen on establishing his authority, his honesty, and his credibility. How is doing that? He's going to do that, or how are writers doing that? They are doing that by, for example, appealing to their knowledge, that are trying to make or the readers believe that they are knowledgeable about the topic, they know the topic, they are grasping its contours and its they know their details the details of the topic to the core. For example, they appeal to their experience. For example, when the author says that I have been researching, or experience and expertise, I've been researching that topic for more than 30 years, then you are more inclined to believe that writer because of his 30 years of expertise in the domain. So, or for example, by appealing to other authorities, established authorities in the domain. For example, when I say Shakespeare said that, or what I'm saying has already been proved or corroborated or by such and such scholar, or this word has already been used by Shakespeare, then I cannot or I'm not likely to doubt what he's saying. So establishing authority, establishing credibility and trust, this is the idea, the ethos. So when we read an essay, one way of detecting or looking for the ethos for that mode of persuasion is to inspect and look for the elements in the essay or the speech that cause the audience to feel that the author is or is not credible and trustworthy. So that's for the ethos. Now, what about the logos? The logos is on the contrary, is the appeal to, okay, logos first. Logos is etymologically, when I say etymologically, that is in Arabic we say lughawiyan. You know, that's the common words which we use to use in our Islamic education courses or classes, lughatan wa istilahan. So that's lughatan, etymologically. Etymologically, logos means the word. So in the opening of the Bible, we read, in the beginning there was the logos, the word. But logos also means logic. So it's fair enough. Logos, Logos, is the appeal to logic, the appeal to reason. The appeal to the use of reasoned discourse, of argumentation, of arguments which are logically built and constructed with other techniques of deduction and induction, in which the ideas are connected with each other, logically connected with each other, with the cause and effects and consequences established. So they appeal to reason. So to make things which logically convince or write things which logically convince the reader. How to do that? Okay, by citing evidence, statistics, by proving what one is saying in different ways, by refuting others' arguments, by bringing in bare facts and arguing about them in a logical and rational way. So fair enough, logos is the appeal to reason and to rational argumentation. The third and last mode of persuasion is the pathos. Pathos, Pathos, etymologically means empathy and the state of being pathetic. And it means, in the context of rhetorical strategies, appeal to emotions, appeal to feelings, emotions. As we say in English, appealing to or just pulling at the reader's heartstrings. How to appeal to? So on the contrary, this mode of persuasion does not appeal to reason or to logic, does not appeal to the character, but appeals to the emotions. Try to touch something sensitive in the audience that will influence their thinking, that will draw them towards the writer or the author. How to do that? It's by appealing to the reader's hopes, fears, love, their belonging, whether it is religious or national. We are all one community. This is our tradition and we have to preserve it. This is our religion and we have to defend it. So this is the appeal to emotions, to things which bind people together. In this mode of persuasion, it is the writer is more likely to use certain figures of speech in order to reinforce his arguments, like metaphors, similes, hyperbole, that is to exaggerate things, to use certain emotive words, certain loaded words or charged words. When you speak about loaded words which have an ideological or emotional charge in them. For example, when you speak about slavery, that's not, for example, that's not an abuse of children, but it's a slavery. Then we are digging or just playing on the connotation of slavery and past incidents of or past history of slavery, etc. Or this is so anyway, you get the idea. So the pathos is the appeal to emotions, and it's not always pejorative as that, of course. Okay, for example, one way of using the pathos of appealing to emotion is just to is when the writer, for example, brings in the discourse, in what he's writing, certain anecdotes in order to reinforce his argument and to strengthen his arguments, anecdotes from his personal life, and that's fairly enough required and acceptable. So pathos can be negative, that is playing in an undesirable way on people's emotions in order to draw them, in order to influence them in quite an unacceptable way. And it can be fair and acceptable, as I said, when you speak about something which binds and connects you and the readers in quite a legitimate way. So, because otherwise our arguments will be cold and without blood in them, without any worth in them. Cold arguments that do not, sometimes they have negative effect on the readers. So we have to include, or just to be aware, to establish some connections between us writers, for example, if you are writing, and the readers. So one last thing to draw your attention to: not all essays or pieces of writing are include those three modes of persuasion at once. What I mean is, you may just find, for example, the ethos and the logos, while the pathos is absent from the piece of writing, or you may find one of them or just two of them in the absence of the third. But sometimes you find all of them. All of them are used there, but not in a balanced way. So there is some exaggeration or overdose, for example, of the pathos at the expense of the logos and the ethos, or the other way around. So one of your tasks as a reader is to be careful about be careful of the use of these modes of persuasion, and try to see how the writer appeals to or just how the author deploys them. Is it whether in a balanced way or in a non-balanced way? So we'll leave it at that, and I will urge you to go back to the essay we were reading, Isabel Allende's reading the history of the world, and try to see to what extent does she use those three modes of persuasion. Does she use all of them, just one of them? Does she use them in a balanced way? And try, of course, to give examples and pick evidence from the text. Okay, good evening, good night, and see you in the next video, inshallah.